Hey everyone, welcome to the Tab Dump. I'm Alex.
I'm Sam, and we're diving into the wild world of tech today.
That's right, and I'm super excited about it. We've got a fantastic lineup today.
Yeah, I'm a bit more skeptical about our first topic, but Alex here is already building a robot to steal everyone's jobs.
What? No. We're not talking about that. We're actually diving into the impact of AI on the job market.
Right, because nothing says fun like existential dread. But seriously, folks, we're going to talk about the future of work and what it means for our careers.
And don't even get me started on the silver lining. I think AI is going to free us up to pursue more creative and meaningful work.
Silver lining? You're already planning your AI-powered art studio on the moon, aren't you?
Hey, someone's got to push the boundaries of what's possible. But seriously, we've got a great panel lined up to discuss the benefits and drawbacks of AI in the workforce.
And after that, we're going to talk about the blurred lines of digital identity, which I think is just a fancy way of saying we're all just a bunch of avatars now.
That's a great point, Sam. And then we'll be diving into some darker topics, like data privacy and security.
You mean the never-ending nightmare of password managers and two-factor authentication?
Huh, well, someone's got to keep us safe from the hackers. And finally, we'll be wrapping up with a discussion about the future of advertising, specifically YouTube's Unskippable Ads.
Which I think should just be renamed the future of humanity's attention span.
Well, there you have it, folks. It's going to be a wild ride today.
Stay tuned and try not to lose your mind.
Welcome back to the Tab Dump, folks. Today, we're talking about AI and the job market, specifically the recent Oracle layoffs that's got everyone buzzing.
Yeah, 30,000 jobs cut, that's massive. But let's get into it. What do you think is driving these layoffs, Alex?
I think it's a combination of factors: the shift to cloud computing, increased competition from cheaper alternatives, and the pressure to invest in AI research and development.
That's a pretty optimistic spin, Alex. I think it's more about Oracle's inability to keep up with the likes of AWS and Microsoft Azure.
But doesn't Oracle have a long history of innovation? They were pioneers in the database space, after all.
That's true, but innovation doesn't always translate to staying relevant, and in this case, I think they've been slow to adapt to the changing landscape.
I see your point, but what about the role of AI in all this? Do you think it's a scapegoat for poor management?
Not necessarily, but I do think AI is exacerbating the problem. By automating certain tasks, companies are essentially cutting out the middle layer of workers.
But isn't that the point of AI? To augment human capabilities, not replace them?
That's the ideal, but in practice, it's not that simple. And what about the jobs that are being created, like data scientists and AI engineers? Those are high-paying jobs, but not everyone has access to those skills.
That's a valid concern, but what about the people who are being displaced? Can't they just retrain and adapt?
Not always. I mean, have you seen the latest numbers on workers' retraining efforts? It's abysmal. And what about the people who can't afford to retrain or upskill?
I see what you're saying, but what about the benefits of AI? Don't we need to innovate and automate to stay competitive?
We do need to innovate, but at what cost? I think we're overlooking the human impact here. What about the people who are losing their jobs, their livelihoods?
That's a fair point, but what about the jobs that AI is creating? Like, have you heard about the new AI-powered jobs in healthcare?
Yes, I have, but those jobs are few and far between. And what about the people who are already in healthcare? Are they just supposed to compete with AI for their own jobs?
I don't think it's a zero-sum game, Sam. We can create new jobs while also automating tasks that don't require human touch.
I hope you're right, Alex, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here. We need to prioritize the people who are being affected by these changes.
Agreed, but how do we do that? What policies or regulations can we put in place to mitigate the negative impacts of AI?
Well, that's a great question. I think we need to have a national conversation about the role of AI in our economy and society. We need to consider things like universal basic income retraining programs and even the possibility of AI taxes.
I like the idea of a national conversation, but let's not forget the role of individual companies in all this. Oracle, in particular, has a responsibility to its workers and the wider community.
Absolutely. And I think we need to hold companies accountable for their actions rather than just relying on government solutions.
I'm still shook by that Yu-Gi-Oh! Accusation against the White House for using anime footage without permission. What's going on with digital ownership?
It's a symptom of a bigger issue, Alex. We're seeing more and more digital avatars, NFT, and even governments using copyrighted content without permission.
I get what you're saying, but isn't this just a case of fair use? The White House is using the footage for educational purposes, right?
Actually, the White House claimed they got the footage from a third party, but Yu-Gi-Oh is disputing that. It's not just about fair use. It's about who owns the rights to digital content.
But think about all the times we've used memes or GIF from movies and TV shows. We're not stealing anything, we're just sharing culture.
That's true, but the issue is when those memes or GIFs start making money, suddenly, the value of the original content becomes quantifiable and people start getting sued.
I see what you mean. It's like the difference between piracy and sampling in music. But what about the case of Zelensky and Ukraine, using Pokemon cards to rally support? That's a form of digital ownership, right?
Actually, that's a great example. Zelensky is using the cards to create a sense of national identity. But it's also a nod to the global culture of Pokemon. It's not about owning the content, but about reclaiming it.
But what about the creators of Pokemon? Don't they deserve compensation for their work?
Of course they do, but the issue is how we define compensation. Is it just about monetary gain, or can it be about cultural recognition and exchange?
I still think the White House should be able to use the footage without permission. It's for the greater good, right?
The problem is, Alex, when we start making exceptions for the greater good, we undermine the value of creative work. If the White House can just use the footage, why can't everyone else?
But what about AI-generated art? We can create new content without any human involvement. Does that change the game?
Actually, it raises even more questions about ownership and authorship. If an AI generates a piece of art, who owns the rights to it?
That's a great point. And speaking of AI, didn't we talk about the impact of AI on the job market earlier in the episode? Could AI-generated art be a solution to the unemployment problem?
That's a whole other can of worms, Alex. AI-generated art could potentially replace human artists, but it could also create new opportunities for people to collaborate with AI systems.
I never thought of it that way. But what about the impact on human identity? If we start relying on AI-generated avatars and art, do we lose a part of ourselves?
That's the million-dollar question, Alex. As we continue to blur the lines between human and digital identity, we need to have these tough conversations about what it means to be human in the first place.
We just discussed AI and digital identity, but the latest hack on Epstein files by a foreign hacker in 2023 is a harsh reminder of the real-world consequences of lax data security.
I know, it's a classic case of it's not me, it's you. The hacker's not the problem. It's the FBI's security measures or lack thereof.
But think about it. This hack could have compromised sensitive info on thousands of people, potentially putting their lives at risk. What's more concerning is that it was a foreign actor, not some random script kiddie.
That's true. But let's not forget the FBI is a government agency, and with that comes a level of scrutiny and expectation to maintain security. It's not like they're a private company that can just shrug off a data breach.
Fair point, but what about the bigger picture? We're seeing more and more data breaches, and it's no longer just about individual companies. It's about governments, institutions, and the entire digital ecosystem.
And that's exactly why we need more regulation, not just for data breaches, but also for the way companies handle user data in the first place. Think about all those NDAs that prevent whistleblowers from speaking out.
The NDA thing is interesting, though. I came across a thread where someone joked about what they could reveal now that their NDA had expired. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, I saw that too, but that's exactly the problem. We're normalizing the idea that secrecy is the default and transparency is something to be feared. It's like we're saying, oh, the cat's out of the bag, might as well just keep it that way.
But isn't it also about the burden of proof? If someone reveals something that's supposedly confidential, how do we know they're not just trying to exact revenge or cause harm?
That's a classic slippery slope argument, though. If we start worrying about the what-ifs, we'll never make progress towards a more transparent society. And what about the people who are genuinely harmed by these NDAs?
I'm not saying we should let people willy-nilly reveal confidential info, but rather, have some mechanism in place to verify the legitimacy of the claim, so it doesn't become a game of he said, she said.
That's still a pretty broad and subjective process, though. And what about the chilling effect of NDAs on whistleblowers in the first place? Do we really want to encourage people to keep quiet about wrongdoing?
It's all about striking a balance, I think. We need to make it safer for people to speak out, but also ensure that we're not creating a Wild West where anyone can just start spilling secrets willy-nilly.
Easy to say, but I still think we need more concrete measures, like legislation or regulations, to hold companies accountable for their handling of user data. And this Epstein hack is just a symptom of a much deeper problem.
I agreed it's a symptom, but it's also a wake-up call. We can't just keep pushing the issue to the side and expect it to magically fix itself. We need to start having more nuanced conversations about data privacy and security.
Nuanced conversations are all well and good, but what's the action plan? What can we realistically expect from lawmakers, companies, and individuals to actually make a difference?
Well, for starters, let's make it a national conversation. We need to get more people talking about data security and pushing for meaningful change.
I'm with you on the conversation part, but we need to make it more concrete, too. What about advocating for specific policy changes like data protection regulations or mandatory security audits?
Exactly, and we can also look at international examples like the EU's GDPR. It's not perfect, but it's a start, and it shows that it's possible to get traction on these issues.
Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. It's time to take it from abstract principles to actual policy proposals and start pushing for real change.
Hey Sam, we just heard about YouTube introducing unskippable ads. What are your thoughts on this move?
To be honest, Alex, I think it's a huge mistake. We've already talked about how data privacy and security are major concerns, and this just adds another layer of annoyance to the user experience.
I understand your point, but think about it. YouTube has become a major platform for creators to monetize their content. This could be a game changer for them.
That's a narrow view. This isn't just about creators. It's about the users who are now forced to sit through ads they can't skip. It's like when Uber introduced that feature to let women avoid male drivers. It was a knee-jerk response to a perceived problem, but what about the broader implications?
I see what you're getting at, but I don't think it's comparable. YouTube's just trying to find a new revenue stream. And what's the harm in sitting through a few extra ads?
The harm is that it's just another way for companies to dictate what we can and can't do online. We're already sacrificing our data for the sake of convenience. Now we're being forced to sacrifice our time as well.
But isn't this just a natural evolution of online advertising? We've seen it with Facebook's algorithm changes. For instance, the platforms are just trying to adapt to user behavior.
Adapt to user behavior? That's not how I see it. It feels like the platforms are dictating what we want and need, rather than responding to actual user feedback. And have you seen those YouTube ad numbers? They're already astronomical. Do we really need to make them even longer?
Actually, I think that's a point in YouTube's favor. They're willing to experiment and try new things, which is what innovation is all about. And who knows, maybe users will start to appreciate the value of longer, more engaging ads.
Engaging ads? That's just code for ads that are designed to be as manipulative as possible. And what about the impact on mental health? We've talked about the dark side of the internet before. Is this just another example of how technology is eroding our well-being?
I don't think it's a direct correlation. We can't just blame one factor for everything. Besides, there are plenty of ads that are actually interesting and entertaining. Why can't we have more of those?
That's a romanticized view of advertising, Alex. Most people don't want to sit through ads, period. And what about the impact on creators who are already struggling to make a living? This could just be another nail in the coffin for their livelihoods.
That's a fair point, but I still think there's value in trying new approaches. And what about the flip side? Could unskippable ads actually lead to more meaningful interactions between creators and their audience?
Meaningful interactions? I think you're giving YouTube too much credit. This is just another case of more is more. More ads, more noise, more distractions. When will it end?
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. It's been a wild ride discussing everything from AI job displacement to the dark side of the internet.
Totally. I'm still thinking about the digital identity conversation we had earlier. It's wild to think about how our online and offline lives are merging.
For me, the YouTube ad topic was really interesting. I think the shift towards unskippable ads is a sign of the industry's desperation, but also a necessary step towards monetizing content.
I don't know, man. I think it's just a nuisance. And what's the point of watching ads if I'm just going to skip them?
That's true, but I think the real issue is the content creators who are being forced to rely on ads to make a living. It's a tough spot for them.
I see what you mean, but for me, the takeaway was the importance of data privacy. We can't keep ignoring the fact that our personal info is being sold to the highest bidder.
Yeah,